To get more info, please contact us, +1 678 648 4277 or visit www.economicshomeworkhelper.com. Email info@economicshomeworkhelper.com. 1. We are given the following labor input requirements. Cloth wheat UK 2 hours 6 hours USA 3 hours 2 hours. A. What is the relative price of cloth in terms of wheat in the UK? In the USA? In autarky, relative prices are equal to the opportunity cost of production. This is because, if a positive amount of both goods are demanded, in equilibrium, the cost of purchasing a good must equal the cost to produce the good. Letting the USA be home and UK be foreign, we have. Notice, we wrote in the units for the relative price and opportunity cost. B. Where will the free trade price settle post-trade? Who will export which good? If positive amounts of both goods are demanded in each country, then the post-trade price must either be equal to, or rest in between the two autarkic relative prices. This gives economicshomeworkhelper.com. A country will trade whichever good for which they have a comparative advantage. From the above calculations, since the UK has a lower opportunity cost of cloth in terms of wheat, they will export cloth and the US will export wheat. C. If the post-trade relative price of cloth in terms of wheat is equal to 2/3, show what happens to consumption of cloth and wheat in the US and UK pre- and post-trade. Use this information to calculate the wage in the USA relative to the UK post-trade. We answer this question by asking, how much can we consume with 1 unit of labor pre- and post-trade? Before trade, a country can only consume what it can produce itself, so it depends on technology, i.e. ULRs. With trade, however, a country will produce the good for which it has a comparative advantage and can then either consume it, or trade it at world prices for the other good. We therefore get the following. Table 1. Consumption with 1 unit of labor. economicshomeworkhelper.com. Before trade, after trade with. Cloth wheat. UK 1/2 1/6, USA 1/3 1/2. Cloth wheat. 1/2 1/3 3/4 1/2. In the table above, the goods for which a country has a comparative advantage are underlined in the before trade columns. We know those amounts are produced post-trade in each of the countries after trade, and then we convert them into the other good using the relative price of 2/3. This is easily done when we notice the units on the relative price of cloth in terms of wheat. For example, if the US produces 1/2 units of wheat, we perform the following calculation to determine how much cloth they can consume. 1/2 wheat times 3/2 cloth/wheat equals 3/4 cloth. Now, looking at the after trade column, it is easy to verify that the USA is wealthier because they can consume more of either good with 1 unit of labor when compared to the UK. To know by how much, we just have to ask the question, what do I have to multiply the UK consumption by in order to get the equivalent amount in the US? We find this by the following calculation. economicshomeworkhelper.com. X equals 3/2. Therefore, we can see that the US is 3/2 wealthier than the UK, which implies W/W equals 3/2. D. Show that unit labor costs post-trade are consistent with the pattern of trade. Post-trade, a country should be producing the good for which they have the lower unit labor cost, ULC. Recall, the ULC for good I is given by AIW. From the previous problem we know that W/W equals 3/2. Therefore, if we let W equals 1, then W equals 3/2. We can then calculate the ULCs for each good in each country. Table 2. Unit labor costs after trade cloth wheat UK 216126 USA 33/233 halves 9 halves 3. Indeed, the table confirms the pattern of trade identified in the previous parts of the problem. economicshomeworkhelper.com. 2. We are given the following labor input requirements for Uruguay and Chile. Uruguay, Chile. Insulation 5 2.5 grain 1530 beef 3030 videotape 2-3. A. What is the order of products from greatest to least comparative advantage for Uruguay relative to Chile? Recall, in the multiple good context, a country has a comparative advantage when they have a lower ULC. Therefore, for any good I, we want to make the following comparison. economicshomeworkhelper.com. The open circles are supposed to represent potential inequalities that we have yet to fill in. However, notice what we are comparing: the relative wage of Uruguay to Chile, to the relative ULR of Chile to Uruguay. The higher these relative ULRs, the more of an advantage Uruguay has at producing that good. We can therefore list the goods for which Uruguay has the greatest to least comparative advantage. As Table 3, greatest to least comparative advantage for Uruguay. Grain 2 videotape 3 halves beef 1 insulation 1 2. B. Use the numbers provided to draw the relative demand for labor. The y-axis of the diagram should display the relative wage of Uruguay to Chile, WU/WC. Figure 1, relative demand for labor. economicshomeworkhelper.com. C. In equilibrium, both Uruguay and Chile produce videotapes. What other products are produced by Uruguay, and what other products are produced by Chile? First, note that if both Uruguay and Chile produce videotapes, then they must have the same unit labor cost for producing videotapes. From Part A, we know that Uruguay has a greater comparative advantage at grain, and so Uruguay must have higher unit labor costs for producing beef and insulation when compared to Chile. We therefore have economicshomeworkhelper.com. Uruguay, grain, Chile, beef and insulation. D. What is the relative wage, WU/WC, for Uruguay to Chile when the equilibrium results in both countries producing videotapes? Again, if both countries produce videotapes, we know both countries must have the same unit labor costs for producing videotapes. We therefore have 3. Home, no asterisk, and foreign, asterisk, produce cheese and wine with the following unit labor requirements: home, foreign. Cheese ALC equals 5, ALC equals 6, wine ALB equals 2, ALB equals 6. economicshomeworkhelper.com. Home and foreign have total labor forces of L equals 100 and L equals 200 workers. Before we begin this problem, we should already organize the information we are given into a single table. This will help us identify all necessary information with relative ease. Table 4, Organizing Information. Unit labor requirements, total feasible production. Cheese, wine, labor force, cheese, wine. Home 5 2 120 or 50 and 5 halves 2/5 foreign 6 6 200 100/3 or 100/3 11. Notice, we have underlined the good for which each country has a comparative advantage. A. Graph each country's production possibility frontier and calculate the opportunity cost of cheese in terms of wine. Which country has an absolute advantage in cheese production, which in wine production? Which country has a comparative advantage in cheese production, which in wine production? economicshomeworkhelper.com. From the above table, since home has lower unit labor requirements for both goods, it has an absolute advantage at the production of both goods. However, when comparing the opportunity cost of cheese in terms of wine, we see that foreign has a comparative advantage at cheese, and home has a comparative advantage in wine. Each country's production possibility frontier is given below. Note the slope is given by the opportunity cost of cheese in terms of wine. Figure 2, Production possibility frontiers for home and foreign. Home, foreign. economicshomeworkhelper.com.